Welcome to Draft Utopia. Chris Ransom and joining me today to break down the NHL Trade Deadline and an NHL Mock Draft. I did a 2-round NHL Mock Draft on Draft Prospect Hockey. I'm going to break that down today as well. Ron Mont's here to break that down with us. And yeah, RNJ Media, he scouted some of the players for the NHL Draft that I've scouted. We'll get to that later, but I want to start with the John Carlson trade. You see, if you're watching this live or you see the thumbnail on YouTube, yeah. We put John Carlson in because I think that's the biggest move of the trade deadline. I think you could argue Quinn Hughes is the best overall acquisition. But at the same token, I don't really consider that a trade deadline move because it happened way before the deadline.
Like way back before even the Olympic break.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. So I'm with you.
But Vancouver couldn't turn that down. Like that, they were not going to get that type of return from anybody else. I mean, and I think Minnesota honestly gave up a little bit too much. Marco Rossi, he's their best center. You could argue, you could debate Joel Eriksson is their best center, but I've always liked Rossi's a little bit more in terms of his upside. You got Liam Ogren, Zeev Buium, first-round pick this year. I just think that's too good of a return to turn down.
Well, and what they got in return, right? So Greentree is a Prospect Watch alum. So I scouted him. I interviewed him, and I'm here to tell you they got a pretty decent return.
Yeah.
Okay. He's an A-level prospect. Okay. So I mean, they're getting a good player. I mean, he's not gonna be. I mean, like I say, he's an A-level prospect. So it's like he still needs to get that shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have to agree with you, Chris. By the way, thank you very much for having me on, man. I really appreciate you bringing me on here so we can talk all things.
We have
NHL.
not talked hockey in forever, Ron.
I know.
Exactly. I'm excited. Anaheim got John Carlson, and, John Carlson, he was such an instrumental player with Ovechkin for so many years in Washington. For Ovechkin to say this was the most depressing day in our lives.
Yeah, like to watch his reaction. I mean, he was broken.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I get it. He's been there since day one, right? All 17 years or whatever, the whole 9 yards. And when you get to be playing with somebody that long, and like he said, they had family that knew each other and hung out and blah, blah, because they probably all live close by. You know what I mean? After 17 years of playing on the same team, you're going to live close by. You know, some guys are, you know what I mean? But that's what he said, man. It was like he was broken. You could tell he was broken. And I think that's going to signify the end of Ovechkin.
Yeah.
I really do.
Play hockey in Russia, but I think his days with the Capitals are numbered after this year.
Yeah. Especially with the Carlson move. That just is because they have a chance. They're only 3-4 points out.
Yeah.
Right. So they're still kind of in the hunt. Right. And there's still about, a good month or so left of the season. Maybe a good 19 games left ish. Yep. Right. So, I mean, hey, 19 games, that's a lot of points to garner.
Yeah.
And if you're already in the 70s, because I think this, with what happened last year, you're going to need at least 90 points. At the very least, I think, to get into the playoffs this year in the East.
Yep. And you're looking at a wild card 1, wild card 2 scenario at best if you're the Capitals right now, because
see, exactly.
I just think
they're all climbing uphill against Boston,
the Islanders, the Penguins, and the Hurricanes to do anything to crack that top 3.
Exactly.
And John Carlson and Ovechkin, they've had amazing chemistry together. They played hockey for 17 years, so you could see why Ovechkin was bummed out about losing a player like John Carlson, the best defenseman on the team. But at the same time, the Capitals did get a great return. They got a first and a third round pick from the Anaheim Ducks for Carlson.
That's there was a lot of that going round.
Yeah.
Yesterday, because Schenner, right? Braden Shen, captain of the St. Louis Blues, gets moved to the Islanders for a first and a third. in
And then Justin Falk
2026.
got moved to the Red Wings for a first and a third. The Blues
Okay, see, so you getting it, right? You know
The
what I mean?
Blues
Like,
have 3 first-round picks now, and if
I know.
Colton Parayko hadn't vetoed the trade to Buffalo that would have sent the Blues a first-round pick and redeemed Mertka, the Blues would have had 4 first-round picks in this draft.
Well, hey.
So
They got some good return.
I don't
They
think you
got
can
some good
complain if
return.
you're a Blues fan unless you're salty about Parayko vetoing the Sabres trade. I mean, you got pretty good long-term return, and if you get these picks right in this year's draft, then you're looking at because right now I think Dallas, Minnesota, Chicago, and Utah are all built really well long-term. Maybe not this year, but long-term down the road, I think they're all the roster construction for all 4 of those teams is really good. And the Blues, with a strong draft in 2026, if they get Gavin McKenna at 2 or they get him at 1 and they get some good players after that, they got an opportunity to enter that discussion. They're not there yet, Ron, but I think they've got an opportunity to enter that discussion. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, and with what they did at the trade deadline, and I imagine they're probably not done because there's probably going to be some deals that are going to happen here at the draft, and then of course in the summer, once we hit free agency, right? There's going to be some players that are going to be available potentially for some of these teams. You know what I mean? And I think that's where you're going to have to go for some of that. But I like what they're doing. I like the prospect pool that they're building. So I mean, and they're going to have a stockpiling draft picks. If you're a team that's on the outside looking in, that's the way to make it better is to stockpile draft picks so you have capital when you go into the draft.
Exactly.
It ain't rocket science here, folks.
Yeah,
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to mention briefly the two teams that played yesterday, the 2 best teams in the league, Colorado and Dallas, what they did at the trade deadline. Colorado basically going all in at the poker table because they don't have any draft picks in the first or the second round until 2029. And based on the information I've read on HF boards, I don't agree with the information, by the way, but the people on HF boards, hockey forum boards, they've been saying 26, 27, 28, they're the strongest drafts of this decade, Ron. And then you got 2029 and 2030 as really weak drafts, but I wouldn't go there yet because A, it's too early to say that, and B, there's already 2 defensemen in the WHL that got exceptional status that are 2029 eligible, and 2030 is RJ Celebrini's draft year. Macklin's younger brother. That's when he's eligible for the draft. So I wouldn't say 2030 is a weak class because whoever gets that number 1 pick's probably going to get RJ unless he screws up at a certain point in his development. But it's too early to speculate on that right now.
Yeah, we're 4 years out from that. But based off of what you said, I also would have to tend to disagree because I think 26 and 27 are going to be, and potentially 28 are going to really be some pretty strong drafts. When I say a strong draft, I mean there's going to be a lot of players in multiple rounds that you're going to be able to select that are going to either be a starter on your team, eventually potentially make an all-star. There's some once in a lifetime type talent sprinkled in both all 3 of these drafts that are going to be coming up for sure. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward, actually. I think the next 3 drafts are going to be, I agree. I think they're probably the best so far of this decade so far.
Outside of maybe the last 2, because 24 through 28, we've had a really good run with the NHL draft. I do think it's going to cool down in 29 and 2030, but I'm not ready to say it's a weak draft yet, like the people on HF boards. Just saying. And these are people on the forums. I don't know their names. I don't know their accounts. I'm not gonna call out the accounts. That's not really professional. So I'm just saying. I'm just reading the comments. I'm reading the speculation, and I'm reacting to it based on what I'm hearing.
Right. Well, I tell you what. I think that this is, and I hate to get off a topic here because we're talking about the trade deadline, but I really think that with the new CBA in place that is going to take effect in the coming season, 26-27 season, where they're going to allow that one guy to play on the AHL team that's young and with the way the junior leagues have massively changed, and now things are that landscape has changed
Yes.
in the juniors, and you're starting to see where they're giving the kids more choice, where they can go to the WHL, they can go to the OHL, they can go to the USHL, or after they're done doing that, or the BCHL or whatever, you know what I mean? Then they can get into college. Okay. And you're starting
Yeah.
to see the rise of college hockey, especially in United States. And
Yeah.
you're seeing kids from even across the pond, Finland, Sweden, Czech Republic, whatever, coming over to play in the NCAA. So that's going to
I
change
agree.
everything too. So, you know what I mean? All
Yeah.
right.
And last year they put a rule in. It used to be you had to sign your entry level contract by the time you turned 20, unless you were in the NCAA. Now NHL teams don't have to sign their draft picks until they turn 22. That's
Right.
another benefit.
Right. Right. So it gives them more time to, you know what I mean, be
Yeah.
able to develop and everything else like that.
So that,
But there's a couple other moves that I thought that happened on trade deadline day that were maybe not as significant per se. I mean, yeah, the Falk was a first and a third, and yeah, the Shen, and I want to get into the Shen one here in a minute. But the fact that Nazem Kadri is now back with the Avalanche, I think that really kind of helps put them back over the edge.
yeah, it's going to be, I think it's going to be Colorado or Dallas this year. I can't really
Ye-
see anyone else winning the cup. The way those two teams have played each other this year, both games this season have gone to penalty shootouts. And Dallas, I think Colorado, I'd still give Dallas a slight edge, but only because I've seen them have a multi-goal lead over Colorado. I don't think Colorado's led by more than one goal against Dallas in either of the two games they played this season. So,
I don't
but
think
we
so either.
haven't
And
seen them play with Kadri and with Nicholas Roy, who Toronto got from Vegas in the Mitch Marner trade, who they just acquired. So
yeah, yeah.
at the deadline, Dallas got some good players, and they kept their highest draft pick in 26 and 27, which is huge because A, they can be buyers next year if they don't win the cup this year, and B, if they want to preserve that draft capital and reload their prospect pool, they can do that too. So there's multiple benefits to that, in my opinion.
No, I agree, 100%. And with Hintz coming back from injury,
He got
that
injured
helped.
by Nate McKinnon last night,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but yeah,
Okay, but he was coming back.
he was coming
He
back
was.
from a flu at the Olympics. Everything
Yeah,
looked good, but I think this is like 3 or 4 lower body injuries for Rupe Hintz since the game against the Oilers last year. If that trajectory continues, I don't think he will finish his contract out with the Dallas Stars because he'll be 31, 32 by the time his contract's up in 2031. And Wyatt Johnson's a 2030 UFA. He's going to get
yeah.
extended, and they're going to try to figure out, can we move Hintz? I know he has a no movement clause, and as long as Stars are good, he's not going to want to trade out of Dallas. But I think if these lower body injuries for Rupe Hintz continue, and let's say next year you get an offer from Toronto, they say, we'll give you Austin Matthews, but you have to give us Hintz and 2 first-round picks. I don't think you can turn that down. That's like the Mikko Rantanen trade. I don't think you
Yeah,
can turn that down with Hintz's injury history. And I
I
know Hintz is a
agree.
better playoff performer than Austin Matthews. I get
Mm,
that. But Matthews is a top 5 player in the league.
hmm. I mean,
During the regular
you
season,
know,
he's a top 5 player.
you
Outside of
can't.
McDavid and McKinnon, you could argue he's the best center in the league.
I agree. I agree. Or one of. I mean,
Maybe
there's a
Crosby,
handful
if
of
you
them.
want to throw him in there. You do have some young stars like Bedard and Celebrini emerging too.
Yeah, right. So I mean, there's some guys, a handful of guys out there. All right.
But
So
but Dallas, they got Michael Bunting from Nashville, 31 points, and then they got Tyler Myers, 6'8" defenseman from Vancouver. I think he's the tallest defenseman in the NHL. And I remember when Tyler Myers first entered the league, the Sabres they had Ryan Miller. They looked like a team that was on the up and up. And then everything fell apart after the conference finals losses to Ottawa and Carolina.
yeah, I mean, wow. All right. So let's
What other
shift
trades
into
you want to talk about?
yeah. The Braden Shen to the Islanders. They got a first and a third for him.
I like that move for the Blues and the Islanders. I mean, I like the fact that the Islanders are willing to be aggressive, take that big swing. And I felt like that's probably something the Penguins should have done, because I feel like if either of those teams is fully healthy, they can upset the Hurricanes. If either team's fully healthy when the playoffs arrive, I think either team can upset the Hurricanes, but it won't be easy. And it will definitely be they'll definitely have to do it in 6 games, I think, because if it's game 7 in Carolina, that's where you're at a disadvantage. With that crowd, with their experience, that's where you're at a disadvantage.
So I'd have to go back and look and see what their record is against the Hurricanes this year, the Islanders. But I have been overly impressed with what they've been able to do there.
Yeah, the Penguins could have traded the first round pick away, but they chose to keep that pick and not take a big swing, because they drafted Benjamin Kindle at like 11 and he's on the NHL roster. So they feel confident they can develop whoever. And they're building along a strong prospect pool for when Crosby and Malkin retire. So I'll give them credit in that respect. And yeah, Malkin got suspended 5 games for the
Yeah, right.
Rasmus Stalin hit.
Yeah, right. That slash. Ooh, boy, that was. Hey, can't do that. But I really think that might really help their leadership room for the Islanders with bringing in Shen. He's got that Stanley Cup experience. Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
that's something that they can use in the island. Because look,
I
let's
think they've
face
got
it.
3 former captains on their roster. Anders Lee's their current captain. I think Bo Horvat was Vancouver's captain when they traded
Yes,
for him. And now
yes,
you add Braden Shen. So they've got
yes,
3 captains in that
right.
room, that team.
And we've all seen what Matthew Schaefer has done this year.
Exactly.
And that team has just been able to put together a string of games, put together win streaks. I really like what they're doing there. I really like Patrick Waugh, what he's doing there as well. I kind of get a little bit of an inside line because I know a season ticket holder, so she's just a great person. We had her on Puck and Deep, Isle Girl, right, and she's like big time Islanders, and she knows
Yeah.
about what's going on with the Islanders, and they have a great prospect pool. I mean, Kayshawn Aitchison just won the defenseman of the month,
Yeah.
for the Barry Colts. You know what I mean? And Jackson Smith is doing really well at Penn State. So I mean, their prospect pool is pretty good.
Jackson Smith was picked by Columbus, I believe.
I'm
But
sorry. I'm sorry. My mistake. My
they got
mistake.
the other player, William Eklund.
Eklund, yeah, but Eklund's been doing really well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
So,
agree.
yeah, my mistake, my mistake.
No worries.
Correction,
It's all
correction.
good.
Yeah, but Kayshawn Aitchison was their other draft pick for the Islanders, and he did
Yeah.
just win Defensive Player of the Month with the Barry Colts, and he's
Penguins
just
did
been.
get Elmer Soderstrom, but it didn't feel like that big splash move that they needed to make in order to separate themselves from the Islanders or even the Hurricanes. The Islanders, to their credit, they at least attempted to do something to separate themselves from the Penguins and the Hurricanes. Whether it works out, we'll see. I'm not ready to say if it will or it won't work out yet, Ron. I'm saying I give them points for their effort to do something, whereas I felt like the Penguins, they just sort of played passive.
And so kind of did the Hurricanes. They, you know what I mean? They didn't really. They're kind of
They got the guy from the Flyers for like a conditional 7th round pick, but he only has 1 point.
Yeah, all he is a fighter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's about it, right?
Yeah.
And then Philadelphia gets rid of Nick, right? And then they pick up some other guy that's 36, Jan Denning. That's the same kind of guy, same player, same type of player, same. It's like, come on, what are you doing? Um, are you surprised by any teams that didn't make any moves? I mean, Anaheim made some really good moves. I mean, I think the teams that made some moves, I thought they did good moves, but were you surprised by any of the moves
I
that weren't?
felt like there were a lot of GMs that were passive outside of Vancouver before they trade. Outside of Vancouver, and maybe outside of Vancouver and Nashville, I felt like a lot of the teams in the bottom five were very passive. Like I can get San Jose and Chicago being passive. They're building up their prospect pools. I can respect that. But Calgary was
Mm,
being passive when they should have sold more. The Rangers were extremely passive. They probably should have sold a little bit more. Toronto was especially passive. Their asking price was too high for Oliver Ekman Larson, so they were passive. And yeah.
okay. I was just, I mean, we didn't see Thompson move. We didn't see Tage Thompson move. We didn't see Bobrovsky move. We didn't see Ristolainen move.
I think Florida wants to
Um,
re-sign Bobrovsky and take another crack at it when Barkov comes back next year.
well, he's on the books right now for 10. So what are
Yeah.
you going to re-sign him as?
If you re-sign him for less, you risk losing more. But if you re-sign him for more than 10 million, you're literally crippling your cap space to where you're not going to have much you can spend on.
And do you think that Sergey is going to be like, sure, I'll take less than $10 million a year? You know, like, he was the
No.
first goalie to say that's what my contract's going to be, and Florida was like, okay, here, we'll do it for you for 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, or was it 10 years? Did he get 8 or 10 years?
I don't remember. I mean, he left Columbus after the 2018-2019 NHL season.
Okay.
It feels like he got 6 or 7 years, but he could have
Okay.
got 8 or 10. I don't have the
Yeah, I
exact.
don't know. I don't remember, but all I know is it's 10 million a year, so that's a
That's
lot.
what I remember. I think it's 10 million or 10.1 million, but either way, it's just it's very minor difference in the money. It's still a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, still a lot of money. I was a little bit surprised that the Tage Thompson thing didn't materialize. I that was the big talk. Everybody thought that was going to happen, and it didn't. There was a lot of talk about Ristolainen potentially going, but he didn't go. The asking
Yeah.
price, I think, was a little too high on that. You know, they wanted a first round
Yeah.
and draft picks or a level prospects. So I mean, I don't think so for Ristolainen. I think
Yeah.
Risto is probably at best a second round and maybe a prospect, but that's about as far as I would go with him.
Yep. I agree with you on that.
You know, so
It
I
is
don't know what
history.
they tried to get a first round for him. I guess that's what the asking price was, and you know, no.
Bobby Blake got moved at the trade deadline, I think. Bobby Blake.
Yeah, yeah, and Philadelphia was able to get a player that they had coveted for the last 4 years, or you know, prior they were trying to draft him in his draft year, and unfortunately, it didn't work out.
David Jiricek. I think he went
Juracek,
sixth after Cutter Gauthier.
yeah, right, and so, but it was one of the guys that they wanted, so
Yeah, because they wanted Gauthier. I think Jiricek was their next choice. I don't know where they had the guys ranked on the board. I think they probably either had Slavkovsky or Wright at one. We'll never definitively know.
right.
But they probably had both Jiricek and Gauthier in their top five, if I had to guess, at 4 and 5. And then their top three were guys that were all off the board. I don't know whether it was probably Wright, Cooley, Slavkovsky, or Slavkovsky, Cooley, Wright, or or maybe Nemec was in that if they didn't like Wright's character. But it was some combination of those three, and then it was probably Gauthier and Jiricek at 4 and 5, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I'd put that about right. Yeah, I'd put that about right. But so there, that's kind of, I mean, teams that needed to do some things did some things. Teams that probably could have done some things, probably aren't doing some things. I think one of the big things that maybe affected this is the the cap is going to raise significantly.
Yeah, I think the caps. It feels like the NHL's at that point where the NFL was at in the mid to late '90s, where the cap's going up by about 25 million each year. That's
Yeah,
kind of where the NHL's at. I know at the NFL now, it feels like it's going up 35 to 50 million a year,
yeah.
but that's just, and teams just don't want to retain contracts now in this new era where you have to be under the cap at all times. Teams do not want to retain players. They want to keep their core, pay their core as much as they can to keep them, and then build from there.
Exactly, exactly. So, I mean, but it wasn't quite the day like I remember back a couple years ago where like you would take off work to watch the trade deadline day for the NHL
Yeah.
because it was so fast and furious and stuff was happening and big names were flying all over the place, you know what I mean? And now it's like you saw some of the bigger names move before the trade deadline. Like
Yes.
even leading up to the trade deadline, there was a couple of deals that were done. So I mean,
Yeah.
okay, okay. All in all, it wasn't a bad trade deadline. You know what I mean? Like it did all right. It did all right. I mean, all things considered, there wasn't a McDavid or a Crosby or a name like that out there, but that's just not
Yeah.
going to
The
happen.
only team that had enough cap space to trade for Bobrovsky was Colorado. And because they chose Kadri over Bobrovsky, that sort of left Florida stuck with Bobrovsky.
Wow. Okay. See that's the kind of cool stuff that we get to find out. You know what I mean? Like
Because
what
they had over 10 million cap space before they traded for Kadri. So,
and Kadri's what like 5, 6, 7, something like
yep,
that.
yep, 7 million
Yeah, 7. Okay, right. So
for 3 years versus Bobrovsky on a rental. But I think if they had gotten Bobrovsky, they would have beaten. They probably would have done enough, in my opinion, to get the edge over the Dallas Stars. And I hate to say that as a Stars fan, but yeah, I don't
well,
think we can
see,
beat them if they had gotten Bobrovsky. I don't think we beat them. Done.
well, look, I
In
watched a
7
lot
games.
of Florida games this year, and Bob does not have his best year.
Yeah.
Okay, so and he's making 10 million a year, but we're at game 59 right now. So they would really only be on the hook for whatever that prorated number would be, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a UFA at the end of this season, so they would have to pay, the rest of his salary for
Yeah,
the
and
rest of the year.
that would affect their ability to pay Cale Makar, who's a 2027 UFA, by paying
Okay.
him. That's
Okay. All
probably
right.
why they didn't trade for him, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. That's exactly why I asked you that question, Chris, because I knew you would know that.
Because they're going to make room for McKinnon and Makar no matter what. And they're
Yeah.
going to treat everyone else like they're.
Well, wouldn't you? If you
I
were
mean,
Colorado, wouldn't you?
yeah, Colorado, though, the only players they can get in the draft are guys in the top 10. I mean, the 4 players they hit on in the draft in the 2010s decade, they hit on Gabriel Landeskog's second pick. They hit on McKinnon, and they had Duchesne third overall at the time, who was
Yeah.
an established veteran, but they did move him off eventually. They
Yeah.
hit on Mikko Rantanen 10th pick. Then they trade him last year because they felt like he's a casualty compared to your captain, compared to Nate
Yeah.
McKinnon, and compared to Cale Makar. They felt like he was the casualty of that group, but they had the money to pay him. They just didn't want to.
Okay. Wow. I
So
mean,
they,
that's pretty savvy. I mean,
yeah,
and that's why Colorado is one of my favorite NHL franchises and has been for a long time because they always just seem to, ever since they hoisted that first cup, what was it, in 03, right?
96 actually, but they got a second
96.
one in 2001, and then they got a third one in 2022.
All right. So 3 cups now for them. Okay. And all things considered, 3 cups since 92, right? That's
Yeah,
not that's not too shabby. They've been to the finals a couple of times, but of late, they've been more relevant. You know what I mean? They've been more a part of the conversation because, look, they just kind of started this season and said, NHL, hold my beer.
I think the
Like,
other
they
part of it is
rattled off what, 40, 35 wins with like 4 losses, right?
I think part of it is McKinnon. Not only is he pissed about losing to Dallas 2 years in a row, he's upset that Barkov has more cups than him because Barkov and him were the top 2 picks in 2013, and now he's number 2 in Stanley Cups and Barkov is first. I think that makes him a little angry inside, to be honest.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. Would not surprise me at all. And it wouldn't surprise me if that was something that's driving him.
Yeah,
I mean,
I could see him winning two or three, to be honest, but I don't know if because Colorado is pretty much banking on winning multiple cups in the next 3 years. And if they don't do it, they're going to be in a position to where they're not going to be set up well long term. And other teams like Dallas will still have guys they've got to.
yeah.
Dallas will be at the point where Colorado's at now in 2 or 3 years, where they got to figure out, okay, what do we do with Miro now that he's a 2029 UFA? What do we do with Wyatt? What do we do with Hintz, Lindell in 2031? They'll be at that point in a few years. They're not there yet. And because Stars have been smarter with their draft capital and because they've been able to hit on late first round picks, whether it's Thomas Harley at 19, Wyatt Johnston at 23, or Liam Bixel at 22, because they've been smarter they had Maverick Bourque 15th on their board in 2020 when they got him at 30. So because they've been smarter with those late first round picks, they do have a little bit more flexibility in terms of being able to reload. But if you pay Robertson, you're going to have not only all your core guys that you've drafted since 2017 are going to be locked up. They're all going to be on good contracts for the next 2 to 3 years. And you're going to have draft capital to where you can reload your prospect pool if you lose any big names. So I think long-term, them and the Wild have the 2 best potentials in the Central, but I also think Utah is knocking on the door. The Blackhawks are going to be knocking on the door once their prospects are consistently playing with Bedard. So, and the Blues have a chance, like I said, if they have a good draft this year, they've got a chance to enter that discussion too.
I agree. And so far they've been able to draft pretty well. You know what I mean? See, that's the thing. That's the key in the draft is you need to be able to hit on your lower round players. Like, you know what I mean? So you need to be able to do your due diligence and find those first round guys. But once you get past the first round, you need a couple of those second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round guys to hit. You need to be able to find them kind of guys, and you can see the teams that aren't able to find those guys where they are and how they're struggling with their prospect pools and things of that nature. You know what I mean? So I'm also very excited about how the playoffs are going to shake down this year, especially with Florida dropping off. I mean, they pretty much got to win out.
I'm laughing at this really stupid meme. It's got Shooter McGavin with the Avalanche logo. It's got Mr. Larson Mr. Larson, the guy with his nail in the head from Happy Gilmore, as the Wild.
Yeah.
So does that make Happy Gilmore the Dallas Stars if the Centrals
wow? Because I'll tell you what, Minnesota really just loaded the gun, didn't they?
They did.
They really did, and it's going to be interesting because I think there's 1 or 2 games left between division rivals.
Yep. And after the first round, you get to a point where you only have like a 13% probability of getting a first line player with a first round grade in the second round. You know what the percentage of getting a first round talent in the late third round is? 1%. And Cameron Johnston was a first round player on the Stars draft board last year, and they got him at 9. Cameron Schmidt, sorry. But yeah, they got him at 94, I believe, and they had him in their top 32. So you only have a 1% probability of actually pulling that off. So outside of Dallas, how many teams have gotten a first round player on their board in the late 90s with a 1% probability?
Yeah,
how many teams have actually pulled that off in recent years?
Not many.
Yeah.
You know, whatever they're doing down there for
I
draft.
think 2027 and 2028 both are really deep classes. This draft does have some talent too outside of the first 2 rounds, but it feels more like a top-heavy draft compared to 25, 24, and 27, in my opinion.
Yeah, because 24 had a little long, had some length to it, but I do agree. I think that 26 is going to be a bit top heavy, but
Yeah.
some of the names that are gonna be the top heavy names are just looking really good, Chris. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I mean, wow. I'm gonna tell you right now, I think there's gonna be potentially an upset in the draft.
Should we load the mock draft on Draft Prospect Hockey and go through the picks now? Because I feel like we've gone through all the trades.
Okay, I think we've gone through all the trades, but I'm not really all that totally prepared to do a mock NHL draft
I'll
just
just
yet.
read through my picks. We don't have to go in depth
Oh,
with all
okay,
of them.
okay, okay. All right, go for it, man. Who you got number one?
Um, at number 1 overall, I've got I've got I've got Matthew. I've got Ilya Sorokin at number 1, but I'm looking for the I'm looking for okay, here we go. I found it. Ivor Stenberg. I think Vancouver is going to try others. That's what I think they're ultimately going to do. I think they would take Ivor Stenberg if they were picking first, if they were picking second, and he was on the. I think if they were picking third and Carano taking McKenna and he's got the Blackhawks getting Verahoff at 2, if that happens, I think Vancouver Stenberg at 3. I think Stenberg is Vancouver's top guy. The only reason I'm making that educated guess on is very simple. They try to recreate the past. What worked for them? What got them the pinnacle? And what got Vancouver the pinnacle was the Sedin brothers. Yes, Roberto Luongo was great at goalie too, but they've been good with Thatcher Demko. I'll give them credit for keeping him under contract, but the Sedin brothers really were the glue of those Vancouver teams back in the day in 2010, 2011, and 2011, 2012.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
oh yeah.
Peterson doesn't really have that top line left winger that can complement him the way that the Sedin brothers were able to complement each other. So I think they're going to look at Stenberg and say that's the guy they want. I would take McKenna number 1 personally, but I think Vancouver, if they're picking first, they're picking Stenberg. That's just how I feel. And, Stenberg hasn't had any off the field stuff. He's considered the most NHL ready player. And, I know McKenna had the incident in the bar, but he wasn't charged with anything. I still think he's the best player in the draft. But I think Vancouver's going to take Stenberg if they're picking at 1. That's just my opinion. Because I heard the Dallas had Stenberg at 1 on their board, but I don't think they would. I don't think they would get him unless a team pulled off a blockbuster trade for Jason Robertson that involved multiple first-round picks plus players as well. And I don't think Dallas is going to move on from Robertson. I think they're going to get something done in the offseason.
Yeah.
And if a team does make a tender on Jason Robertson, they have to give up 4 first-round picks from 2027 to 2030. 4. That would be the asking price with his salary.
Yeah.
Do you really want to hand Jim Nill 4 years of number 1s, even for a player as good as Robertson? I don't think many teams are looking forward to that thought.
I like where you're going with that. I like Ivan Stenberg. You said you would take McKenna number 1 overall. Honestly, I might not. And then it all depends on who actually is going to get the number 1 pick.
I agree. I tweeted the other day that whoever gets the number 1 pick is going to decide because heading in the preseason, Ivor Stenberg, Gavin McKenna, and Keaton Verhoff were all consensus top 3 players in every mock draft I read. But it's not like in the preseason where McKenna was the clear-cut number 1 guy. It's not like that anymore. I think it's going to depend on who gets the number 1 pick. I really do. And I posted a tweet a while ago on this. I'll pull that up again.
Okay.
NHL draft lottery ultimately is going to determine who gets the number 1 pick. If Stenberg will go first, if the Canucks, the Kings, the Predators, or the Maple Leafs win the lottery. McKenna will go first if the Rangers, Blues, Flames, Blackhawks, or Devils win the lottery. If Toronto gets number 1, they could go McKenna too, but they're the team that I think would have the hardest time deciding of this group. And then if the Jets or Sharks win the lottery, I think Verhoff goes number 1. I do, because the Sharks need defense in the worst way possible, and so does Winnipeg, because Winnipeg's already loaded with offense. They've got Kyle Connor locked up. They've got Mark Scheifele locked up. They've got Connor Hellebuyck locked up. Until they fix that blue line and get a better number 1 defenseman to complement Josh Morrissey, put Neil Pionk on the second line, until they do that, their defense is not going to improve. And that's partially why I think Winnipeg's regressed to such a degree this year, because I was telling you, Winnipeg's a team I might fade this year, but I saw what they did in the playoffs, and I figured they did just enough to earn the last wild card, and now Winnipeg's in the top 5 of this draft. So, a lot can change very quickly, Ron. So I think
very.
I think if Winnipeg or if San Jose gets number 1, I think Verhoff's the first pick.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll be Stenberg or McKenna, probably.
Okay. Like I said, it all depends who gets the first round draft. I like Tynan Lawrence. I would put him in the top 3.
I agree. I don't know if he'll go in the top 3, though. This draft is... I agree. I've got Verhoff at 3, but the only reason the Rangers are picking this high is because Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin are both on IR.
Right.
And I think they're in a very unique situation because they've got Fox and Gavrikov. You add Verhoff, you don't have to play him on the top line. I mean, most teams... And the Rangers can either take if the Rangers like a guy like Chase Reed, who's going to choose to go the NCAA route a little bit more than Verhoff, they could do that.
See, now that's what I was going to get into next. As far as defensive goes, I do like Chase Reed. I like Carson Carrolls, right?
Yeah.
And Daxon Rudolph. I really think Daxon Rudolph is going to be another one. You might see Albert Smith as well jump in.
This draft is loaded with defensive players. I think I have 6 or 7 in my top 10. I know I only had 7 in my top 21 in my first mock on Draft Utopia, but I think the Rangers, the only reason I went Verhoff is because I'm putting the NHL defenders that I think are most NHL ready at the top of the draft. But the Rangers can really go either way, Ron, because with 2 number 1 defensemen like Fox and Gavrikov, they can say, you know what? Yeah. We're gonna take a defender that we like the best, even if he takes a little bit longer to get to the NHL, like a Chase Reed if they want to go that route, or they could take the most NHL ready guy in Verhoff. But I gave him Verhoff because I think he's the most NHL ready guy. But they might take Chase Reed. They might take one of these other guys that we're gonna mention.
Yeah, right. Like Daxon Rudolph would be one, or Carson Carrolls or Albert Smith.
I have Albert Smith at 4. He was not in my preseason first round mock, but I watched his tape. He showed me he could be a number 1 defenseman. Here, and you add him with Zane Parekha, and you have those guys pushing each other. Okay, you finally have a first line pairing that can take pressure off your young star goalie Dustin Wolf. You recently extended,
right. I really like what Carroll's is doing with the Prince George Cougars too.
Yep, he's number 5. I have Carroll's at 5. I don't think Winnipeg can go wrong with either Carroll's or Chase Reed. I think Carroll's is gonna be more NHL ready, and that ultimately was the difference for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I would go with that. I would go with that as well. I would go with that as well.
I want Mal Horta at 6, but I would if I were Chicago, I'd pick a defender at 6, but I think they're more likely to draft a forward. And I don't know which forward they're going to pick because Caleb Malhorta is going to go to Boston U with Sasha Boisvert and Tynan Lawrence. And you're going to have Malhorta, Boisvert, and Lawrence, the top 2 centers in this draft, and Boisvert, who's in the Blackhawks prospect pool. Boisvert's probably going to go back to Boston University because he has less points this year than he had last year.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I would guess he's going back. So you're going to have Malhorta, Boisvert, and Lawrence all competing to be the first line center. And I don't know. It's going to be hard to get this pick right knowing that because Malhorta, he's dominating right now with Brantford. He's shown he can play on the top line with Jake O'Brien getting injured. But is he going to show that same fire once he goes to college when he's competing against other more experienced players like Lawrence and Boisvert? That's what I'm curious to see. Because ultimately, that's why this is going to be hard to really
and
get that
I also,
number 1 center in this draft. I'm not saying it can't be done, but with Chicago, they don't have to worry about getting a number 1 center since they have Bedard. They can just take one of these guys and hope he becomes a second or third line guy down the road.
Yeah. That actually makes a lot of sense. You could also probably throw in Oliver Savanto as well too, playing with Tapara.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah,
I think he could potentially be one that could sneak in there too. I also like what you said about Malhotra. I think that's a good one too. But
yeah, because Anthony went to scout him in person last week and came away really impressed. He's legit.
Oh, he did. Okay.
That was the text I got. He's legit. So I'm probably going to keep Malhorta on Chicago unless they end up in the top 3.
Yeah. So you think he's going to go?
I think he's going to be the first center off the board, but I could be wrong on that.
You think you like him better than Lawrence?
Right now, yes, but it's very close.
Wow. Okay.
I feel like Lawrence is the safe pick, but I think Malhorta's got more upside. But I think Lawrence is the better floor, and he's the safer pick.
Okay. And we haven't even mentioned Viggo Bjork.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I only have 1 center in the top 10, but it's not because I think the center class is bad. I just think the defensive group's that good. I still like Ryan Lynn in the top 10. I still like Daxon Rudolph in the top 10. I think both those guys both those guys choose to stay in the CHL, and not go to college, they probably have quicker NHL paths than Chase Reed. And I have Chase Reed finally coming off the board at 9. But he could come off the board as early as number 3 as well.
Okay.
So this is, I believe we had 3 defensemen in the top 5. Yeah, it was Verhoff, Smits, Karels, and then you add Ryan Lynn, Daxon Rudolph, and Chase Reed. That's 6. And then I gave the Florida Panthers Ethan Belchitz because I feel like with Carter Verhaeghe and Brad Marchand,
yeah.
And then they're losing Evan Rodriguez. He's a UFA. So if you let Evan Rodriguez walk and you end up with a top 10 pick and you draft Belchitz, you can just reload. And you have Belchitz and Lindell on that third line for Florida.
I agree. That's a pretty, I really, man, I like that idea. I like that move.
And so the Kings ended up getting Tynan Lawrence at 11. And I said he's a top 10 prospect, but it's like he fell to 11. And with Kopitar retiring, Lawrence becomes your de facto center 2 behind Byfield. And if Byfield cannot emerge as that number 1 center without Kopitar there, maybe Lawrence takes his job and ends up on the top line. I could see it.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there might be an opportunity down the road if Byfield doesn't assert himself as that number 1 center when Kopitar retires. Because that's why they drafted him 2nd overall in 2020 with the hope that he'd become the guy when Kopitar retired.
Exactly. Ooh, all right.
And then Viggo Bjork is on your Flyers. So at 12. And this is the thing. If Lawrence and Bjork fall out of the top 10, I think the teams picking at 11 and 12 are going to be 2 of the fastest teams to turn in their cards on draft day, Ron. I could be wrong on that.
You think?
That tells me all I need to know about their
you know?
Watts tells me everything we need to know.
I agree. I agree because no matter what, Philadelphia's first pick has to be a center.
Yeah.
No matter
And,
what.
and I
No
think,
matter what.
yeah. And I think if they draft Lawrence or Bjork, they'll end up surpassing both of their 2025 picks at center as the top prospect in their pool.
Dude, if they okay, so just so y'all, in case none of you know, I also cover the Flyers. I do a show called the Hockey Writers Inc., and I cover the Flyers. And are you kidding? If Tynan Lawrence could come to the Flyers, are you kidding?
I don't know if the Kings would go for Bjork or Lawrence, but I like Lawrence more than Bjork. And I felt like it was a crime that he fell out of the top 10, but I don't know which of the guys. The thing is, I feel like everyone in the top 10 in the 7 through 10 range is a guy who can develop into a top line player. Lawrence is probably the next guy up. He was a top line player in the USHL. He's a second line player at Boston U, but if he jumps Waver as the
Which I
top
think
line guy before the end of the year, I'd probably put him in the top 10, but it's very close. And if he falls to 11, the Kings are going to pick him or Bjork instantly, and then the other guy's going to fall to the Flyers. So that's going to be the top 12.
Okay. All right. I ain't going to argue with any of that. Jeez.
Your top 12 where you could argue 12 players belong in the top 10, but two guys in that 16 range are going to slip to 11 and 12.
Gotcha.
All right, the Capitals. I want Elton Hermanson here. This was a guy that I had said had first line potential in the preseason, but so many players in my preseason rankings underperforming, there's a chance Hermanson goes in the top half. And I like him for Washington here. This is the guy Anthony's high on too. And most of the mocks I've read have Hermanson in the top half of the drafts now. So Hermanson at 13.
Yeah, I like that too.
The Bruins got Xavier Villanueva, last year's Emil Bouchard winner, probably one of the better offensive defensemen. I'm not high on him personally, but he's the final defenseman from my preseason rankings with the upside to be a number one defenseman. William Hankinson's a guy who sort of emerged this year. He was the number one defenseman on Luleila in the SHL.
Yeah.
And Ottawa would be picking at 15 if they weren't stripped of their first round pick, but because they are, Columbus is picking here. And with Hankinson and with Jackson Smith, you have two defenders in that prospect pool that really give Columbus life on the blue line after Zach Werenski.
Agreed. I would think they would be looking more, more for the offensive side, but okay.
I mean, this draft is very heavy with top line defensemen, and next year's draft is very forward heavy outside of Landon DuPont. So I think teams that need defense are going to load up on defense and take advantage of that because the market's favorable for forward players in 2020.
Come to mind. Sharks come to mind.
Yep. Is it Alex Elofsson or Axel Elofsson? But either way, he's very good on the Rogel BK under 20 team. And then Malte Gustafsson to Utah.
Yeah.
Anaheim traded this pick to Washington. So in this scenario, Rubrek is now a Capital, but that's who would be replacing Ovechkin. So those would be massive skates for Rubrek.
Wow.
Phil. Massive. Landon Nyes, this is a player I talked about in the preseason. I still like him as a first rounder, but he's now projected as a third round player. And, if he ends up in round 3, he's going to be the Adam Fox of this draft. I'm just telling you. We have not seen a third round pick. I think only 2 third round picks have cracked the top line. One of those was Adam Fox of the Rangers. The other was Chris Letang of the Penguins. Those are the only 2 third round picks to be a number one defenseman on an NHL team in the past 20 years. Wow. So I think Nyes would be the third guy if he fell to the third round.
I'm really liking JP Hubler.
Hulbert I gave the Islanders him because
all right.
With Bull, Horvat, Barzal, and Ritchie, that would be a really good trio. But now the Blues own this pick. The Blues now own this pick thanks to the Braden Schneider trade.
Yeah.
Braden Shen trade.
Braden Shen.
But yeah, the Blues, Hurlbear would be a good replacement to Braden Shen.
Yeah.
So I even though the different teams picking at 20, that's still a good fit for the Blues.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree 100%.
Oscar Hemming, he's the younger brother of Emil Hemming. I think his ceiling's lower than Emil Hemming, but he's more versatile.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
I think he's going to get drafted ahead of his brother. I mean, I had Emil at 16 on my big board, and he went 29th. Oscar's probably going to go higher than Emil, but I think his ceiling's a little bit lower. And that's okay if he's not a top line winger, because they've got Pasternak as their first line right winger. So they don't need him to be the top line guy. If he can play the second or third line at the NHL level, that's a good pick. Sabres get to keep their first round pick because the trade with Parayko fell through.
Yeah,
So
they didn't get to do
Ilya
the thing.
Morozov. I think Tage
Ooh.
Thompson's better at right winger than center. So, you know what? Ilya Morozov's going to be a Sabre here, and I think he's got the floor of a third line center and the ceiling of a first line center.
I think your co-star agrees too.
Yeah, my dog. I agree.
Yeah, right.
That's Missy. That's my dog. I've been taking her out all week.
Oh.
She likes to assert her dominance over the neighbors when she stares at the window. She's
Awesome.
a black lab, but she's a good girl.
That's good. Let's see. Who do you got there? Adam who?
Adam Nemec. He's the younger brother of Simon Nemec. He was the only player in the 11 through 16 range from the preseason that didn't disappoint me.
Okay.
Most moved him out of the first round, but he improved from last year, not just at the Slovakia level, but in the Ontario Hockey League as well. So I had the Red Wings picking Nemec here, but the Red Wings traded this pick to the Blues, so the Blues would get Nemec here. And yeah, I think the Blues would draft a defenseman with one of their 3 first-round picks.
I think they're going to have to.
Yeah, they traded Justin Falk.
That's
they
what
almost traded Parayko. I know I gave the Red Wings Nemec here, but number 24 is a guy I told you about at the USHL Fall Classic at the Barrio Sports Lemieux Complex in Pittsburgh. He's also a guy you've seen, a guy you've talked about, made a post about on Facebook yesterday, Trage Ball. Because back in the fall, Trage Ball had a 33 save shutout in his first game of the season. Back then, he was a 6th-round prospect.
Yep.
But I was like, this guy's not falling to the 6th round. And I was waiting to see when he would move up the boards. And then when I did my mock last week, he was listed on the Penguins at 57. But this is a weak goalie draft. There's like Trage Ball, and there's one other goalie that I put in round 2 that has a 3rd-round grade at the moment. But I think Trage Ball's done enough to actually move up in the first round. And considering how successful his
Usanesto is the other goalie.
I don't know if there's a goalie from Russia that I have as my goalie too. I'm not as high on Esko, but I'll look at him. Tell me more about him after the show. Message me about him. I'll look at him.
Okay, but you're right though. So you actually have a goalie going in the first round, and that
Trage Ball blew me away when I saw him in person, because I remember the USHL Fall Classic, and Anthony was talking about their center Hextall, Jack
Hextall. Yep.
He's pretty good, but Trage Ball blew me away, swept me off my feet. Was just really impressed with Trage Ball more than I was with Hextall.
Well,
33 save shutout. I mean, and I just think this is a guy who belongs in round 1. You look at the success Fowler's had since he's been on Youngstown. I think Youngstown, they're starting to build a goalie factory very similar to the defensive end factory the Miami Hurricanes have. They're slowly starting to build that goalie factory.
I agree. I got to go cover 2 games in Youngstown, right? So I got to watch him. So that was back-to-back games. So he played the first game and was amazing, right? And then I got to cover him at the 2026 Chipotle All-American game, where he pitched a 30-shot shutout for the first period and a half. Okay. And that right there, I think that game right there was one of the, because let me tell you something. There were a lot of people at that game that were covering hockey and general managers and everything else like that. And that kid was impressive. I mean, he's got all the tools. I like that he's a more of a stand-up guy, and boy, does he fill the net because he's huge.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when you go to stand up next to him, it's like, and I'm 5'10", okay, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? But I agree. I love what he's able to do. He's so calm in the net. He's able to read things so quickly and
Yeah.
react so quickly.
And I
I
love
really like him.
Fowler. I had Fowler, I think, at 21 on my board 3
Okay.
years ago in 2023. I've got Ball at 24 right now, but Ball's taller than Fowler was, and I spoke with the Youngstown goalie coaches when I was at the Mario Lemieux Sports Complex, because we were both right next to each other, the Youngstown
Oh,
goalie
nice.
coach and myself. We were both like right next to each other when we
Oh,
were
nice.
watching Ball in the
Nice.
first
Nice.
period of that game where he had the 33 save shutout.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, and Ball's going to UMass. But yeah, I think these next two drafts, there's 3 first-round goalies. There's Ball this year, and then there's the 2 WHL goalies next year.
Yeah.
Carter Essler of Spokane and Eric Tu of Calgary. And I know Essler was drafted ahead of Tu, but Tu beat him head-to-head in both games that they played earlier in the season.
Right.
And I had both goalies, I think, in my top I think I had both goalies in my top 20 for 2027.
Wow.
So,
okay, that's pretty cool. All right.
but I like Ball this year.
Yeah, very much so.
He might be
That
end up
fits with
being a
Pittsburgh if he
second-round
gets
pick.
there.
He might be a second-round pick, but I could see Pittsburgh taking him in the first round.
Yeah, I could too. Very much so, yeah.
Because there were rumors that both Skinner and Jari were on the trade block. Skinner more so than Jari. So if that's the case and Skinner has a horrible playoffs with the Penguins, I think they'll draft a goalie and Skinner will just be the placeholder until that goalie's ready. The same way Ben Bishop was the placeholder until Ottinger was ready. And also, who's the goalie I'm thinking of for Dallas that took us to the 2020 Cup? I know his name. What is it? They had a goalie take over for the injured Ben Bishop.
Grubauer?
Might have been Grubauer.
It might have been. Anyway.
Yeah. Adam Novotny from Peterborough, 6'1", 201, versatile enough to play either winger role, 30 goal, 30 assist winger. He would be a good pick for Montreal here. Georgios Pantelis, he's actually the #1 defender on the Brandon Wheat Kings, so he is a good player to add to your prospect pool
all day long.
But there's no game film on him. Yeah, he's the #1 defenseman. I've looked up the Brandon Wheat Kings line combinations. Pantelis is their #1 defenseman, unlike the defenseman they had in the 2024 draft a few years ago that some mocked in the first round. But there was game film on that guy. There's not any game film on Pantelis at the moment. So he could fall to 31, but I think as game film comes out, he'll move up the boards. So that's why I have him at 26. And the Rangers, they get Oliver Savanto here. But I think Savanto, even though Savanto's a top-line guy, I think any of these 3 teams, Rangers, Carolina, Dallas, I think any of them would pick Savanto here.
Yeah.
Probably agree with me on that, Ron.
Yes, Rangers,
I do. Rangers because they could use a center. The Hurricanes because of their Finnish players, and Dallas because of their Finnish players too. I think Savanto would go to any of these 3 teams regardless of who's picking here.
Agreed. 100%.
Yeah, he does model his game after Barkov. I didn't like his tape, but I acknowledge that all 3 teams would take a chance on this guy here.
Yeah, I agree.
Is 4th line center, ceiling 2nd line 1. I do like him as a 3rd line guy on the right team. Calgary, they get Maddox Deganay. He was the first pick in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League draft. They can roll the dice on him here. Hurricanes, they get Jakub Vanecek. I mean, last year we were talking about Jackson Smith. Tri-City Americans, they have another first-line guy on their blue line in Vanecek, who is taken over as the #1 this year. I think he was the #2 next to Jackson Smith a year ago.
Yes.
And I think Vanecek would be a great fit for the Carolina Hurricanes here. I know he's a second-round grade, but I was wowed by him on tape, so I do have Vanecek moving into the late first round.
Nice. That's a good pick for them, too.
Nikita Klepov to the Kraken here. He is just dominated. 4th in the OHL in points, 89 points. I know he's on Saginaw's 3rd line, but I don't think the Kraken can pass on Klepov here.
Probably not.
Just that
Probably
production
not.
is just too good to ignore at 30.
You know.
And the Islanders, they could go one of two ways at 31. They could go Juho Piparainen, the Tapara defender, or they could go Mathis Preston here. And
Okay, either
you
one.
could either one works here. I think if you want size, you go Piparainen. If you want an offensive player, you go Preston. I don't think you can go wrong with either pick. But part of it is the 2018 NHL draft has the record for 13 defensemen in round one. I want to see that record get broken. And this draft has the best chance of pulling that off.
Oh, I like that. I like where you're going with that, Chris. I like that. That's pretty
I've got
cool.
14 defensemen in my top 31.
I'm down. Let's try to get it.
I've got
and we need to see a goalie go in the first round too.
I've got the goalie I've got in the first round is Trey Ball. So
yes.
15 forwards, 14 defensemen, 1 goalie.
Yep, I'm down.
That wouldn't it be 16 forwards, 14 defensemen, 1 goalie? But either way, 31 players.
No. 30. There's 32, right?
Ottawa lost their first round pick.
Oh, that's right. Okay. All right.
That's why they're 31.
So 31. All right.
Okay, cool. Round 2 quickly. Mathis Preston. This is a guy who's probably going to be off the board very quickly if he falls to day 2. So Preston, the Canucks. And then the Ruck twins at 33 and 34. I saw a mock draft with Liam Ruck and Marcus Ruck falling to Dallas. That's not going to happen. Both these guys have 80 and 79 points on the first line of Medicine Hat. And if McKenna had stayed in the WHL, I think both these guys would have 100 points, as crazy as that sounds.
Probably.
That's the crazy part. So I think the Ruck twins, they could sneak into the late round 1, but if they fall to round 2, they're both going to be off the board very early.
Yep, I agree. Listen, man, I hate to do this to you, bro. I would love to sit here and go through the whole mock draft with you. I want to try to
quickly get through some of these names here. Beck, if I can get through Hextall to Nashville at 39, I'm just going to screen share. I want to end the show by 11:10 as well, because I know you got to get out of here, Ron, but I want to try to quickly show our audience the picks. Borichev was the other goalie that I put in round 2.
I like that. And I like where you have Hextall, although I think he's going to be a very early second round.
Yeah. Bert Child to the Kraken at 51.
Okay. I like that too.
Valentini, Hafeli from the Green Bay Gamblers. Ottawa gets him with their first pick. Cooper Williams, player I really like. He reminds me of McKinnon and Bedard as a skater, but he regressed this year, so he's a late round 2 guy. Now, this guy, Joel Eriksson, he is one of the top high school players. He could surge up the board like Mason West did a year ago. 6'4", 201, 32 goals, 30 assists, 62 points in 27 games at Blake High School as their captain in Minnesota.
Wow.
And I have Dallas taking a high school player for the first time since Riley Tuff in 2016. But this guy really wowed me on tape. I wouldn't be mocking him to my team, the Dallas Stars, unless I thought his ceiling was huge. And I
want to comment on one of the guys you picked at Mikey Burchaw. Where'd you put him?
Kraken.
51. I think that's a pretty good slot for him. He really impressed me. His tape has really impressed as he's gotten better and older and stronger and bigger. And then when I see him play at the Chipotle All-American game, that's where he really impressed. They basically put him and Rourke and his line together, and that line dominated that game all day long. So I really like Mikey Burchild at that pick. All right, go ahead.
All right. So Eriksson at 60, we've got Ignatius. He's dominated in Switzerland. I could see him being a future back 6 guy. Dior Rorio for Sarnia, the Rangers here. Dravecki for Brantford. Tommy Blale ends up going to San Jose. 67 points in the QMJHL. He's going to Michigan State.
Yeah.
This draft, it's a very good winger defenseman draft. There's some good centers in this draft too, but I don't know if there's a great center. I mean, outside of Malhorta and Lawrence and Bjork, I don't see a great center. I don't see an elite center, but I see 3 great centers. And I think the rest of the class is good centers.
Agreed. And frankly, I think there is some serious talent in this draft.
Agreed.
Serious talent in this draft, and not just the top 10. Okay, that's what I mean. There's more talent in this draft past the top 10.
Yeah.
If you're drafting in the second round, you're still going to get a really good player.
I don't think the drop off in talent really begins to take effect until like the third or fourth round. There is a drop off this year. I agree. There's a drop off, but I don't think it takes effect until the third or fourth round.
Agreed.
And it's a top heavy draft, but you're still going to get good players in the first, second round this year.
Exactly. So,
and I can say the same thing for 2027 because I think that class is a little bit deeper than this one.
I agree. And I think 28 might even prove to be even maybe more deeper than.
Yeah, because you got Maddox Schultz, you've got Liam Pugh.
Yeah, man.
I can keep going, but I've got stuff I need to do. Ron's got stuff he needs to do, so we are going to sign off here. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. I'll quickly pull up this comment here. I know absolutely nothing by hockey, but I thought I'd like to stop by and give a like and say hi. We appreciate that, Snap Judgments.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. So, we do a lot to educate ourselves. Chris is a major draft guru. I mean, Draft Utopia. Get yourself signed up. Get yourself subscribed. Hop on over to the website and check out the draft generator that he's got going on over there, and just check out all the stuff that he's got over there.
Yeah, I can leave a link to the NFL Draft Simulator in the link in the description. That's currently at 208 players. We're going to add 4 more probably today after the show. But yeah,
awesome.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm trying to stop the screen share here, and then I'm going to sign off. But it's not like I don't want to share the screen multiple times. I want to unshare the screen, but it's not letting me. Oh, do I click the stop button? Okay, there we go. Okay, all right, and then we end the show. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on, Ron. And,
brother.
Have a good day, man.